It is a small strait separating Europe and Africa, and the only passage from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean. The narrowest distance is only about 14 kilometers. This number is enough to see the other side with the naked eye from one side, even for a strong swimmer. It only takes about 4 hours to swim across, but it is this short strait. There is still no bridge across it. You know, globally, bridges over this distance are not uncommon, such as the Øresund Bridge, connecting Copenhagen and Malmö in Sweden, the Øresund Bridge, which is about 16 kilometers long. For example, the Seto-Ohashi Bridge connecting Honshu and Shikoku in Japan. Although it is a set of bridges, the main bridge is also over 14 kilometers, so from a technical point of view, it is not a problem at all. But why this incredibly short distance? There is still no bridge across it. What's more strange is that, on the European side of the strait, in the Spanish map, there is a port territory belonging to the UK. Today, let's explore from history, politics, and natural aspects to reveal the real reason why the Euroferry Bridge remains on paper. If you think the strait is just the boundary between two continents, you are underestimating it. The Strait of Gibraltar is a must-pass point for many international shipping routes. Over 100,000 ships pass through here every year, accounting for 20% of the world's maritime trade. 80% of the EU's oil and gas imports pass through this route. From Western and Northern Europe to the Indian Ocean and the countries along the Pacific Ocean generally pass through the Strait of Gibraltar, the Suez Canal, and the Strait of Mendeb. From a military perspective, Gibraltar is also a military town. The Strait of Gibraltar is the U.S. Sixth Fleet and the navies of NATO countries the key to enter and exit the Mediterranean. The Spanish Rota Naval Base is the base of the U.S. Mediterranean Fleet. The U.S. military can use this control and block the Strait of Gibraltar at any time. Meanwhile, the Strait of Gibraltar is also the Russian Black Sea fleets to enter and exit the Atlantic Ocean. Assuming there is no Strait of Gibraltar, the Mediterranean Sea would cease to exist, and the rest will be just an enclosed inland lake. And ships must also bypass the Cape of Good Hope in Africa, resulting in a significant increase in transportation time and cost, which directly affects the efficiency and price of international trade. Despite the width of this strait, the narrowest part is only 14 kilometers, but the deepest part of the trench is about 1,100 meters. In contrast, the English Channel between the UK and France is 174 meters deep. The Kerch Strait in Russia is only 18 meters deep. Even the average depth of the Strait of Gibraltar reaches over 300 meters, is equivalent to a skyscraper standing underwater. So if a bridge is to be built here, just the height of the piers must break the world record. Now the world's tallest pier is the Millau Viaduct in France. The highest pier of the bridge is 343 meters, which is also built on land. Although this height has exceeded the height of the Eiffel Tower, but compared to the 1,100 meters deep, it is still far from it. For example, the Hong Kong-Shanghai-Macau Bridge in China, the water depth is relatively shallow, and the construction cost is much lower. In addition, the water flow conditions in the Strait of Gibraltar are extremely complex due to the salinity difference between the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean are different in salinity. The ocean currents here are divided into two layers. The surface current flows from west to east, flows from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean, while the bottom current flows from east to west, from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic. Considering the narrowness of the strait, the impact of these two currents is quite strong. It makes the design of the bridge more difficult. Even if engineers racked their brains, even if they solve the problem of piers, the height of the bridge will also come. If the height and span of the bridge are not enough, it will inevitably restrict the passage of some large ships. The chain reaction. It will also greatly reduce the value of the Suez Canal, and even be opposed by Egypt and other countries. Then some people may ask, since building bridges is not possible, why not build a submarine tunnel directly? After all, submarine tunnels will not affect the navigation of ships. For example, the English Channel. There is a railway tunnel over 50 kilometers long. However, as we just said, the English Channel is only 60 meters deep. But the shallowest part of the Strait of Gibraltar is over 300 meters, and the geological structure of the seabed is very complex. Building a submarine tunnel in such a place, the difficulty is conceivable. However, the problem is not only that, due to the Strait of Gibraltar is located at the junction of the African and Eurasian plates. There is a huge geological fault at the bottom of the strait. It leads to frequent earthquakes in the area. So although the width of the strait is not large, various geographical factors make it extremely difficult to build bridges here, and the above are just technical problems. In addition, there are historical reasons. Gibraltar, strategic port located at the entrance to the Mediterranean, is not only a geographical transportation hub, but also a focus of competition among many countries. Let's travel back in time to the 18th century. In 1700, the Spanish kingdom, the last king of the Habsburg dynasty, King Charles II of Spain died. Since he left no heir, the Austrian Habsburg family and the French Bourbon dynasty both claimed to be the rightful heir to the throne, and finally led to in 1701, the Spanish throne dispute broke out. The war lasted for 13 years, with the end of the war in 1713, and the Treaty of Utrecht. Gibraltar was officially and permanently ceded to Britain. Since then, the UK has begun to control the region, plus the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 further strengthened the Strait of Gibraltar's its position in international shipping, so even in modern times, the dispute over Gibraltar remains intense. Spain believes that Gibraltar is part of its territory, but the residents of Gibraltar don't think so. For example, in 2002, the UK agreed to let the residents of Gibraltar to vote on a proposal to share sovereignty with Spain. The results showed that a whopping 98.9% of residents voted against it. This reflects that in the past few centuries, they have been accustomed to and accepted their status as a British overseas territory. The dispute between Spain and the UK is not limited to land. There are also differences in the jurisdiction of the sea. This makes the issue of control of the Strait of Gibraltar more complicated. Besides the UK, Spain and Morocco, on the African continent, also have a bad account. Ceuta and Melilla are two Spanish cities in the African continent, as Spanish territory. They are completely surrounded by Morocco. The Moroccan government disagrees with Spain's sovereignty over Ceuta, and Melilla's sovereignty even moved out of Spain, refusing to recognize the UK's ownership of Gibraltar. Of course, Spain will not agree with Morocco's claims. This stalemate also hinders the progress of the bridge-building plan. Even if all the above problems are properly resolved, the profit prospects after the bridge is built is also highly uncertain. Many super-long underwater tunnels in history have not met expectations in terms of passenger flow. For example, the Channel Tunnel and the Shinkansen Tunnel are examples of huge investments with no foreseeable returns. Even if the Gibraltar Strait underwater tunnel is built, we'll also face the same problems. On the one hand, Africa's economy is relatively backward, and most areas are still in a state of underdevelopment, resulting in relatively less trade with Europe, let alone the Sahara Desert in northern Africa. On the other hand, after the bridge is built, operating costs need to be considered. The maintenance, management, and safety of the bridge, which require a lot of financial investment. If the passenger and freight volume cannot meet expectations, then profits will face great difficulties. Therefore, even though this short distance, carrying the hopes and expectations of two continents, the idea of the bridge has always been in history, politics, and natural factors, is shelved. So in the foreseeable future, the geographical divide between Europe and Africa will continue to exist. Okay. If you like this video, don't forget to click like below. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Looking forward to seeing you next time.